Hello again, Guyana, and welcome to Budget in Focus. I am Malika Ramsey. Thank you very much for joining us. This time on Budget in Focus, it is my pleasure to have two female ministers. Of course, this time it's girl power. Welcome to Minister within the Ministry of Communities, Dawn Hastings-Williams, the Honorable Dawn Hastings-Williams. Welcome, Minister.
Thank you.
And also welcome to Minister within the Ministry of Natural Resources, Miss Simona Broomes. Welcome, the Honorable Simona Broomes.
Thank you so much.
All right, great to have you both. Of course, we know that you are very busy ladies at this point because as we speak, budget debates are continuing. Beginning with you, Madam Hastings-Williams. One of your focuses, I know, in the APNU-AFC coalition government is water sector. And I know you're also passionate about what happens in the hinterland communities when it comes to development, especially in the water sector. Let's talk about that for a bit.
Thank you, Malika. And before I go to talk more about the water sector, I would first like to remind all Guyanese that this budget, 2017 budget, is another step to good life for all Guyanese in a diversified green economy. And you may have heard me talking that even though we've been receiving criticisms, and which I believe is just for criticizing sake, this budget has in store good things that can take Guyanese to enjoy a better life. And so I'll begin with the water sector, in which I emphasize that the 14% VAT that will be, utilized on the water sector would not affect much of our Guyanese. But to this date, even though I made a slight mistake, that was the approximate figure that I gave during my budget speech, the total metered Guyanese customers stands at 182,612. And out of that 182,612, we have 155,011 customers that pay $1,500 and below, and that's approximately 85%. So the majority of our GII customers will not be affected by the 14% increase, which is a mere $1,044 monthly added to the normal bill that they would have to pay for the water that they use. And I also emphasize that water is life and every drop counts and life is precious. And so we need to conserve. We need to know, we need to teach our young children, we need to teach our youth, and we need to teach them what conservation really means. Because as I will add, I was recently at a CWWA conference in Trinidad, and all the heads of the Caribbean who were present there said we need to start looking at water as a very important natural resource. You know, we pay much emphasis on gold, diamond, oil, and forgetting water is life. And water can also be exhausted. Because in Guyana, we have some aquifers due to climate change. You know, they're not producing that adequate amount of water that they used to produce before. So we have to start looking very seriously at our water as a very, very important natural resource. And so I would like to tell the Guyanese and inform the Guyanese not to worry too much about the 14% VAT that is added, because they will in turn benefit greatly. They will see what they will try to stay and to maintain the amount of water that they would use. Because at present, for example, our customers pay like $100 per meter cube in in Georgetown. And so, and we're always willing at GWI to inform the public. Yes, we have lines that they can call if there is any query that they have concerning their bills. They have access to information. And we try as much to do it throughout the country. And very good news in this budget is that 43 new communities were able to access safe potable water under this APNU-AFC government. And Malika and the Guyanese, you need to know that most of our mains around the city are very aged. and old. And so even though GWI would have opened labs, and which we're hoping to have mini labs throughout the country so that we can test the quality of the water that we are serving the public or our customers with. Even though waters are being treated at the water treatment plants, when we're ready to distribute, the distribution lines and the main lines are very aged. And so GWI is now looking in terms of how we can correct those so that our customers can be able to get pure water. Because sometimes the water could be contaminated when they are being distributed because of the age.
And all of this, in terms of the aged mains, all of this is provided for in the 2017 budget.
Most of them we're going to start looking in that direction. Okay. But we will, of course, we'll have to invite technical persons from our sister countries, Caribbean countries that are advanced. And in such, we have a team coming from Barbados who's going to come and look at our system and to see how we can develop and improve on our distribution system. You would also have heard that I was speaking about some of our main distribution that were submerged in drains, which was very insanitary. And throughout the entire Georgetown as a whole, we will find many of those. People had been receiving water from porous mains, and so water was wasted and then was exposed to insanitary conditions, which would have been exposing the people or the citizens to waterborne diseases. And so GWI has corrected those in 2016, and we will continue to improve our water system because, as I told you, water is life. Right?
Indeed.
Yes.
All right, we're going to talk some more in a bit, Minister Hastings-Williams. Let's talk to Minister Broomes now. Minister Broomes, I know you're very passionate when it comes to how our citizens receive any policy, whether it be Budget 2017 or any other general government policy. We seem to be getting some negative sentiments from sections of the society, more so the opposition, regarding Budget 2017. What would you say to ask citizens to not buy into some of the negative criticisms and what seem to be leading them down a path of doom and gloom?
I think at this time it's in the best interest of the opposition to try to get the general public to see the government as negative. What I want to ask the citizen out there is if they're offended, in which they have a right, let me say that, not because I'm a minister of government, or that everything we do people should not question or be upset. It is their right, that is democracy. But what I want to assure them is that the government has a vision for the country and Guyana. And before 2020, they will understand where the government is taking the country. For citizens, we will ensure that we take time to go throughout the length and breadth of the country to explain to citizens exactly what is it we're doing, what is it about the budget 2017, how it will affect them. Allow them also to speak to us, not only by television shows, but we will be going and meet persons on the ground. And so that when we listen to their concerns, going forward, because even if persons are upset, this thing is better for you, but I don't take it, and we do a full analysis of it, by then we will be able. So I just want to say to the general public, be it supporters of the government or non-supporters, it is not the intention of this government to hurt the people of this country. We only want to make life better. I thank them for the opportunity of trusting us as a government to be here responsible for their livelihood, and to say to them, the good life is the only intention of the government. There's no darkness behind it. There's no wickedness behind it. It is just what the government intends to do. For me as a minister, I'm passionate about it. I took the position and I've made a decision to serve the people of this country. And that I will do in all fairness and to the best of my ability. So, like everything else, anything new always come. For me, I remind myself every day it is a living fish that has to swim against the stream. The fishes that are dead, they go any way that water take them. And we as a government, I as a minister, I'm a living fish. And we will swim the stream with our people in ensuring that they receive a good life. In the budget 2017, I really am excited about when the Minister Jordan spoke about the tax exemption on solar and stuff like that. What does that mean for minors? Minors and lots of minors still in some camps in 2016 sleeps with a flambeau. And solar was so expensive. So most persons, you buy a generator, but because of the long periods that these generators has to work, it was not made for that. So the generator break down and you get several problems. Now, miners and the smaller miners can have electricity in their camp via solar, which I think is fantastic. You can move beyond that to say that for persons who have to have a whole set of money to set up your internet service and so on, so that you could have communication based, because it's not the length and the breadth of Guyana that you can access phone. But persons who can afford it in a larger scale, then they would set up their own private internet. That is another option there for persons. So I'm very excited. I would really want to see miners making use of this. And at nights when you pass all these mining camps, be it by the edges of the rivers or in the midst of the jungle, that they can be a shining light. I think it pleases me because it's very heartening. You know, you sleep with this flambeau, next morning when you wake up, your nose full of black dust, your clothes full of black dust. I think miners has really had a cruel life as far as the past government.
I'm happy that you mentioned that, Minister Broomes, in terms of talking about the miners and the conditions and so on, because this is where health comes in. Minister Hastings-Williams, I know that you also focused a bit on health in terms of the hinterland communities and those faraway communities where we see mining to an extent. Let's talk about your ministry's vision in terms of health in those communities and improving health and so on.
All right, let me begin by adding to what my colleague said. We too, in the water sector, are embarking on having all the schools and the health centers in those far-flung communities. Instead of giving them a water pump, just we are looking in the way of providing them with green source of electricity, and that's the photovoltaic system, the PV system that we call, that will be compiled with a solar panels, and that would keep the water constantly pumping from whatever source. And as I told you, we also improve, and so far we've already distributed what we call lifesaver bottles and some lifesaver jerry cans, whereby they can take water from anywhere, from creeks, even from the water tank, even if it's rainwater, they can put it into these lifesaver bottles, which filtrates and purifies the water, which will be safe for drinking. We have distributed some to the hospitals, like in places like Camarang, Quibanang, Kako, Carao, and others and throughout the regions. And we are embarking on purchasing many more of those. So where persons have no access at all to potable water, they can have those jerry cans as to save life from the waterborne diseases. So that's where we're embarking on our health. And in terms of improving accommodations for health personnel, because you would have heard the Ministry of Health is now sending in doctors, medical doctors into these far-flung areas, but for us to have them stay there in a comfortable community, we have a lot more work to do, because we inherited regional system that did not focus too much on making our teachers, nurses, doctors comfortable. And that is why you would always find teachers, even though trained teachers, would not want to venture out into the hinterland, because when they go there, the accommodation is not, what you would expect. Many of the basic necessities is absent, like potable water, and beds and these things. They're just, some of the buildings are there with no furnishings. So we have built some living quarters, health and teachers quarters, and we're hoping to furnish them with the 2017 budget that we have, so that these workers can have a comfortable accommodation to serve the people wherever they are sent. So, yes,
Minister Broomes, if I can ask you to jump in here, how is the mining sector, folks in the mining sector, going to benefit from all of what Minister Hastings-Williams is pointing out in terms of what has been provided for in Budget 2017?
Well, I think definitely you would see an improvement in the health and the quality of service that provides to the hinterland by having doctors there. So many times that you go, you can't take forget a smear. There's not electricity. The generator is not working. Babies from those indigenous communities have to get the BCG vaccines and all of that. They don't have a freezer or any storage because of the lack of electricity. And adding to water, while we're from the extractive industry, it is under this government that we're looking at water as a natural resource. And so even in the hinterland, when we talk about reclamation and filling all these holes, we will ensure that it is well designed to have these major creeks of water. And in the Geological Service Department, while we are looking for minerals, talking about the project I spoke about yesterday, also water is high on the agenda. So miners going into an area to work, they can be advised by the commission that the area in which you are, the water is not pure for drinking. We can then report that to my colleague minister, and for them to have the specialists to come and look at the chemistry in the water and how we can make the water safe. So I think it's a bigger picture. And with the kind of collaboration and the networking that is taking place in this government, because we have a vision for a good life, there's so much that I can go on and on and on to talk about. On that note, boasting of all the goodness, I know the workers who work in the extractive industry, they do have a concern because it was announced by Minister Jordan that they will have to pay 20% to government. In the past, it was a 10%, and we have seen in lots of cases where persons pulling gun, cutlass, and so listen, we're not paying the 10%. The government in the past didn't provide us with road, health care, or anything. Now the cry is from the workers in the extractive industry that sugar workers don't pay tax on their money. They're saying rice workers don't pay tax on the money. Government just removed the tax from the bauxite workers. And so they were expecting that the government would remove the same 10% burden from the miners rather than adding to it. I want to say that is one of the things in the area of consultation that is high on the agenda to discuss with the Minister Jordan. I heard, of course, in the Parliament that we should have had the consultation before. But what is not said is that whether it is before or after, at least the government has an open door policy. We are not saying that we know it all right, but there's still room. And I would want to encourage miners that we will use that avenue to ventilate the concerns. The concessions, however, I must make it known. Never ever in the history of mining, the government signed any agreement with miners for fuel, 4x4 vehicles, impeller shaft housing. Now, for persons who don't know about mining, they don't know what that means. Exactly. And I would have read where the GDDMA mentioned that, and the women miners, that is expired. I was not the person dealing, but I want to say that if that was so, and it is a fact, then all the GDMA had to do is to contact the Ministry of Finance and to iron that out. In the past, the Ministry of Natural Resources was not a part of that agreement. It was between the miners and the Ministry of Finance. We're going to come in to play a role here now to ensure that we are in the loop with whatever negotiation is taking place with the miners, so that at every level the miners. I want to make it clear to miners. When I talk about it's the first time in history, this is not a handout. Miners are entitled. They deserve every bit of concession that is granted to them. We know they risk their lives. We know all the situation. Roads will be improved. Health will be improved. Security will be improved. And all miners know where we are coming from. So I just want to humbly say to them that in their concerns, and these are the workers, it's a genuine concern. And we are going to look at it when we meet with the Minister of Finance very early in January. We're going to schedule that meeting and meet with him, and then we'll have a wider meeting with the Minister and the Ministry, Finance, Natural Resources, and at this time it won't only be the GDDMA or the GWMO, it will be for small groups, individual miners. So the level playing field that we're talking about, because we cannot talk about a level playing field for all, but then when it comes to benefits and all of that, it's only a few at the table. We want to open it up now, and so that all must benefit from it. And let me make this point. While before in the past, there was a 16% exemption on all heavy-duty equipments, the level of corruption that was taking place under the PPP, it was better for you to pay the 16% because you had to pay people at GRA $1 million and $3 million. And I was saying to miners, so then why would you pay this money to get the duty free? On our government, there's one, and I can call her name, she was in the public domain, Shelley Robinson, who went and do business at a high business recognized machinery in place. And they use her information and go to GRA and get VAT exemption for machine that she don't have. So when she applied for compliance and they brought all these equipments before her, she said, I don't have this. So while some would have benefited without a cent, the ordinary and the small miners, when you go to GRE in those days, you had to pay big money to get these same letters. And not only GRE you had to pay at the GGMC to approve you. You got to pay at the GRE. So, I mean, the smaller miners had nothing else to do. But in this case with this government, you don't have to pay anybody any money. It belongs to the miners. So I want to make that point really clear. And here I'm speaking from experience. And it's a fact. And the miners out there know that also. So, I mean, we'll be doing more, talking to them, meeting with them. We will always, as a government, see how, because all workers, I want to make this, this point. In the House, in the budget debate, the opposition speak about the miners in a passing, like it was a slang. They don't really care. There's none of them come with a debate based on these miners who they're saying they care about. They're talking about sugar workers, and rice workers. I want to say all workers are important to this government. Regardless you're in sugar, you're in rice, you're in mining, or you're in bauxite. So, I mean, I was surprised, and I want miners to notice that. None of the opposition members came forward to the government, even pointing out the workers' concern with the 20%. It is I who had to bring it forward in the debate. That is an area that we will be looking at with the consultation. So I say that to say this. The PPP government never cared about miners then, and they don't care now. If miners were to die, we all would have been, I would not have been here. I would have been in the Lapinteria, the Bartica cemetery, please. Right? Thank you. I myself.
I want to talk to Minister Hastings-Williams eventually about Bartica and possible special plans, because we all know Bartica is what is going to be used as the model for helping to push Guyana's green initiative and so on. But before I come back to you, Minister Hastings-Williams, I want to stay a bit on mining, the mining industry and the mining community. One of the things that we always have to be concerned about, Minister Broomes, is our human resources. One of it actually is the most important resource for our country, our human resources. And we've had incidences in the case, even though I must admit that I've seen a reduction where mining pits would have caved in and so on. I know yourself and Minister Trotman would have been working to ensure that those cases reduce. But let's talk about what has been provided in the budget 2017. If not, I know the ministry of itself would have plans to address that.
Well, let me say that before, you see, this government has brought so much to Guyana. Mm-hmm. In the past, when a pit cave in, nobody never cared. It never made the news. I, as a miner, stand up right there and freaking out, watch the whole land just cave in, and somebody that was talking to disappear, and the seconds is a dead person I'm looking at. At Madja, we used to look when you see a vehicle and people running, oh, he gone, and then the next vehicle come, another one just get covered down. That was just the life of miners. The life of miners. I had said it earlier in 2013 when the Guyana Women Miners Organization. A miner's life was like a stray dog hit by any vehicle and left to the roadside. I said that. I had an interview with Chronicle. What did I mean? I was talking about all these things. But now it is so much in the clear. And when President Granger was sworn in here in 2015, when they had that pit cave in, the reason why I knew is because I always pay attention. And the next morning, it was I who called the minister, now Minister State, and said, listen, some persons have died. And while we don't have a cabinet, we have a president. And coming out from the campaign train, volunteered and called the GDDMA, and we went in there with an aircraft with Minister Rupnarain. I stood there when the first 6 body was discovered, and wives and daughters faint into the pit, men in their long boots and socks. It's a nightmare. It is personal for me. So in this budget, and when I talked about a specialist who understands laterite mineral, is to sit down not only with our geologists, but also to sit down with the other technical persons, to look at our soils in the different mining district, and how can we work on mine pit caving prevention. Because mining is all about caving in pits. If you follow me, you're working in your jetting because you want to bring it in. So we got to look at how we can deal with the different soils in different areas, how persons can mine to cave it in a safe way, meaning to say by the depth, the shelf, the amount of water you use, a different area and all of that, so that we must be in a position to educate miners, not only by sitting down in a training center, but on ground to demonstrate to them how that they can sit down. And you sit down with the geologists and the engineers next year to see what model and how best. And we're not saying that we know it all here. Early in this year, for the first time ever in 19 years, the head of the Geological Service Department is when this government came into office, we started sending him to these overseas training to enhance. Never in 19 years he ever leave the shore. He just returned from Australia. One of the mandates that he had, I always wanted to go there to see some of the best practices that they have. And so we're looking at prevention measures. And that is why they had the COI, so that you could get all the stakeholders, they're talking, and then you come with the specialists and sit down so that how we can work. It is not something I'm going to sit down here and say, it happens overnight, or they won't have another pit cave in. I'm not saying that. But one life is one too many. All miners and the workers in the extractive industry, you made a point. They are more important than the owners of the operation. The owners of the operation, they're not there. And so these men, that is why I always had a concern when you have the dredge here and a shop there. Men just drink all night, and sometimes they're drinking in the pit, and one fall to sleep, brace into the wall. The men live like MacGyver, and they get covered down. So it's a whole, there's a lot of things there that you had to look at. But what is a blessing now is that for the first time ever, you have an actual minister within the Ministry of Natural Resources who've had practical experience. And so while one wants to see it as a conflict of interest, I think it's a blessing, and I've took a decision and I made a choice to give up mining and to serve the mining industry.
We expect that you will indeed, which you have already shown, you will indeed be more effective, because you did just explain that, you know, it's personal for you and there's a human side. So we know that you'll definitely be looking out for those miners. Let's talk about Bartica a bit. And Minister Broomes, I know you have some information, you have a passion when it comes to Bartica too. But for now, let's talk to Minister Hastings-Williams about Bartica. Bartica, His Excellency wants Bartica to be the model for Guyana Going Green Initiative and so on. I mean, I know that to say green initiative is very big, it's very broad, but Guyanese are beginning to understand what we mean by that. But let's talk about plans for Bartica.
Okay, thanks again, Malika. But just before I go into Bartica, just want to add a little. Coming from a mining community, you know, mining has both positive and negative effects on the livelihoods of those living. However, we as the Ministry of Communities have started doing consultations, because we realize that miners, because of not being properly educated, they tend to leave the parts of the machines, you know, wherever they find themselves mining. So when you go along the banks of the river or in the forest, you find the parts of the machines like impellers and shaft. They just leave it there when they can't, you know, when they're not able to find gold, and they go and leave their dumps. So we're embarking on what we call an integrated solid waste management, where we have consultations with business persons, miners, and every stakeholder, and to come up with ways and strategies how best we can solve, you know. And we are going, like, for when we took over Bartica, when we first landed in Bartica, you know, Bartica had a very big problem with their garbage, because that was the first site that it took me when I became a minister to Bartica to see the garbage dump that was in Baidarabo area. Very unpleasant, insanitary, but I am happy to inform the Guyanese that that has been cleared away, and we're now looking at a new landfill site, which will bring much more relief to the residents, so that they can have a proper place to, you know, get rid of their garbage disposals. And we're also embarking on a program that we call Green Guyana. So green, that's where we embark in the schools and the government ministries, and we'll be teaching them how to separate their solid waste from organic and inorganic. We'll be distributing bins of 2 different colors to most of the schools as we are starting the program. And you know, where we're going to educate them, because we believe in that when you teach children the basic things, and they can go home, they can take that information home to their parents, their peers, and their age group, and they can spread that message. You know what happens with children when they learn new things. And so that is where we are going to start with our solid waste. And so, as I said, consultations have started. We had one in Bartica, Mabaruma, Imbamadai, Camarang, and Port Kaituma, and we will continue to do consultations so if we can come up with a strategy that will be suitable for every area. You know, what is the best way of getting rid of all these solid waste that we have. Because sometimes when we look at solid waste, we just look at the negative sides. But solid waste can also have positive sides. We need to teach people, you know, like these organic things they can use as a compost to their gardens. Bottles, plastic bottles, they can reuse them, they can be recycled, but it all needs simple education and a change in attitude and behavior, so that we can have healthy communities as a result of the best way or a good strategy in how to manage our solid waste, because that's becoming a problem. As the population increase, the solid waste will increase. So that's where we're embarking. And now coming back to Bartica, yes, the president had said that he would want Bartica to be a model green town. And so far, what I can say, and as we have heard in the budget speech from Minister Winston Jordan, we'll be embarking on having a solar farm in Bartica, which would provide, because you have seen too in news that Bartica was in blackouts for so many days and hours and weeks, and people were becoming frustrated. And so we want to move away from that fossil fuel that is causing a lot of problems, and, you know, start looking the green way, we can have solar farms installed in these communities so that persons can benefit not only from noise nuisance, because solar panels do not, cause a loud noise that you would find on big generators, but that they can have adequate light and adequate energy to provide for their homes.
And have it in peace.
And have it in peace and enjoy it in peace. Yes, Malika. And what I can say too for the water sector, we have started working, we have a treatment plant in Bartica which needs improvement, because as we said, we want to go down that way whereby our citizens could be able to drink water from the tap without worrying about, what can happen to them. But as I told you, we're working on it, and we will continue to work on improving our water systems. And I can say by the Rabo, an area in By the Rabo which never received water before is now accessing water because of the work that what we did on the GWI. We're also embarking on digging new wells in 3 miles. We have the 3 miles, and you have the 4-mile schemes. And we're thinking of opening the new 5-mile schemes. As the population grows, there is a need for more homes, and we need to develop these communities, and we need to ensure that they have safe potable water to drink.
Great. We look forward to all of that. Minister Broomes, I know you'd like to comment. I can feel it.
Because I'm from Bartica.
Yes, ma'am.
I was one of the persons heading protests in Bartica about GPL. When I was at the Ministry of Social Protection, I went in and inspect and had even the workers moved from the unsafe position. In Bartica, you couldn't have a Christmas. Blackout is something that we suffered from in the past 20-something years. Now, what my colleague minister just outlined is a very, very fundamental point to Guyanese people. These solar farms and all of that, and even we're looking at the Amila Falls project. But just starting with these solar farms and all of that, what we're fighting to do is to deliver clean energy. And so even the electricity cost that you're looking at, that you have to pay all this money for, we're living in a country that is quite warm, and persons cannot afford an AC. Look at the elderly persons who live by themselves. They have pressure. The place is so hot, everybody with a fan. The good life that we're talking about. These projects will remove some of these burdens from the livelihood of the ordinary people. And that is what we're fighting to achieve. That is our aim and our goal. But in getting there, we did not inherit a country while we're supposed to be wealthy. All the Guyanese know where the money went. They know better than me. According to my colleague, Minister Sharma, that so-called police force don't have enough police to investigate the COIs. So what I'm saying here is that while the 2017 and the PPP running up and down, they're like a theater, but none of them could have made it to Hollywood. They're not good actors because the Guyanese people are smart. They put them in opposition. And opposition mode is not a fair, nicely mode for them because they have lost the whole of Guyanese people. And so they're going to come to attack us with this budget. But this budget is the foundation for where we're going to transform this country and take it to. I honestly believe it. Sitting down with the president, and when he talked about his reeves and the cabinet and the prime minister, everybody's so sensitive if persons are not happy. Between ourselves, we always discuss what can we do more? What can we do more? And there's a reason why we are here. And I want to put it on record also for the general public. While the PUP masquerade themselves, even if they can't hold a bull cow at masquerade time, in all their colors in the parliament, about the salaries that ministers receive. Like I take home $495,000 the first time I was a public servant. And that money don't reach my house. The amount of people with problems and complain. A woman came to me who is a widow, and for over 60-something years, they had some claims, some properties. And she was about to lose all. The last day of payment, she came to me weeping. She wanted to see if I can grant her an extension. If it was a PPMS, it would have been possible. But with a claim by regulation, once that date meets and you don't pay, which is just $1,000, Malika. But 1,000 by 50 something is 50 something $1,000. I had nothing else to do but to go into my bag and to give the woman the money to go on to pay for her claims. Just last week, when she heard about the budget, she came looking for me. She said, Minister, some people bore gold on my place. And she went to the gold board to sold gold. She had over 12 ounces of gold in percentage. Malika, the humanitarian work that we have to do also as ministers is something else that you got to add to it. And I'm speaking from my standpoint.
So much less the others.
So, exactly. So for me, I'm not here, and I want to make it quite clear. I'm not here for the salary or that unsafe vehicle that don't even have a horn, that big clumsy vehicle parked downstairs there, that Land Cruiser, don't have a horn. It's an ugly, nasty vehicle. But that I have to humble myself in my bubblies and ribbon bow and sit in it because I took the oath to do it. I'm not here for the money. Don't let the people go there all while. I'm here because I thank God, I thank the president for inviting me into his cabinet so that I could make a difference for the people of this country. I want to make that quite clear on that fair salary increase, you know, the 50%. I really feel the 50 yet. And thank God anyhow, because I could imagine, I've never worked in my life. I was always independent. I never worked. You know, it was so, for me, dressing up in the morning, said, I'm going to work. I'm like, is this me?
That was the excitement.
That was the excitement when I was first appointed. I'm going to work. That it got me so stupid. I want to sit and come around at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm in the office.
Don't worry, the public understands what.
And at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the night, I'm still there in the office because I must work.
And yes, because you're excited, you get to serve the people.
I get to serve the people.
Not that you were not known before, but one of the things Guyanese became very familiar with you for, it is your fight in terms of trafficking in persons. I know that is not a main area for you anymore, but I know you still have concerns, especially as it relates to the mining and mining communities. What's next for Simona Broomes, her ministry, when it comes to, especially in 2017, even connecting it to the 2017 budget, when it comes to doing as much as you possibly can do in your capacity in terms of the fight against trafficking in persons?
Well, Malika, let me correct you. Within the government structure, it is not my main responsibility. Within my life, it will always be one of my main and major priority. Always be. Nothing can take that away. I don't care which sector. I will respect structures. But when it comes to me and human trafficking, the rights of people is the worst human rights violation that I've ever seen. And in the ministry, I've started a lot of work by training the mines officers, myself, and the forestry rangers, how to identify. And so early in the new year, we're going to have something very robust. We want to stabilize what is happening in the sector with all these illegal businesses, Wild West all over, where just somebody could just go and put up a pole in, take some girls, say that you're going for a walk, and then you have her there as a sex slave. And we still see that persons being arrested from the extractive industry. That is an area that is very dear to my heart. And it is something that I look forward to next year with collaborating more with the police. I spoke with Minister Kemraj. I spoke with the crime chief on this matter. And so for next year, personally, for me, it is one of the area, regardless how I will be criticized on it, to bring order and to bring respect, the kind of respect that women have earned themselves in the extractive. It would not be a room where one could just get rich by enslaving another. So it is high on my agenda, right up top priority. Last night in the budget presentation, I'm happy that you raised it. The time did not permit me because what happened, I didn't want to put that one first. It's too sensitive for me, and sometimes it just get over my whole emotions. So I leave that one for final, the hard drive coming down. But with all rules and following the orders, I had to end my presentation. So I'm happy that I have this opportunity to mention that as just in a small bit nutshell there to you.
Okay, all right, great, and we certainly do appreciate that. Minister Hastings, let's talk some more again about some of the other areas that we will be working in, and in terms of what has been provided in Budget 2017 for the Ministry of Communities. Of course, this is specific to your areas.
Okay, another thing that I can talk about is the Hinterland housing projects, which also falls under my remit as a little away from the normal CHNPA. It's part of the CHNPA, but I've been assigned to watch over that Hinterland housing project, and we have monies allotted with through the IDB that we're going to complete houses, some full houses, and some will do roof replacements where persons have indicated that they would want to use the zinc instead of the thatch. And the main reason, the women are saying that they would be able to harvest rainwater. And so we're not only building houses, but we're providing potable water and sanitary blocks where there is a need, or what we call latrines. And so they're going to benefit from potable water. They're going to benefit from a sanitary block and also a house. Depends on the needs, like a 3-bedroom house, and depends on the area or the geographic location and the materials that are available. Like, for example, in Regions 9, they go for the brick houses because persons there can manufacture their own bricks. So this program also bringing revenue or source of income, job creation into the communities, because we're going to hire local contractors. We're not going to take contractors from elsewhere to build these homes. We have begun consultations circulate within the community, and consultations had started. Some have been completed in Regions 1, and we have these young men, the beneficiaries and even non-beneficiaries, members of the community, they come together, draw their own plans, sketch their own floor plans, and then the type of house that they would like to have. And then the technical persons step in from the CHNPA and assist them with the estimates. And so with that model, we hire the local contractors. As I said, they provide the materials. Like in Regions 1, they will use wood because that's what's available. And so that is how we're going about with this project, and we're hoping to complete that in 2017.
I'd like to add to my colleague minister why I was excited with that project when I heard about it. Guyanese should know that the Amerindian people, all the fake talk in the parliament about Amerindian, they live, most of them, there's no roof, there's no walls, there's no bedroom, there's no separation. Sometimes 6-7 person, but there's one hammock slinging. I don't know if you can picture that. There's no stove, there's no fireside. There's literal cooking on the ground and all of that. And I'm talking, for example, right in Region 9, where we got representation from MP, not half an hour away off of Lethem. It was so sad to see. And no plain facility, and if you see areas there for housing, that the PPP said that, oh, we got a big area here in Region 9 for housing project, and it's just sitting there and the condition that the indigenous people really live under. So we are not talking about indigenous. They are Guyanese people and they're important. They will not be political pawns. And so it's a big focus, and that is why we are connecting the hinterland to the coastland, beautiful again, opening up opportunity for miners, access to more mining properties. And there's where we talk vision. I mean, I'm so excited about the vision. I would love to sit down in a room, Malika, and just have you to just throw it, or what in my language, come on to me, and let me talk about the vision. It's not something somebody got to wind me up about. I'm speaking from a standpoint where I'm independent in my knowledge and information. I know the vision of the government. I'm a part of that government with just an excited vision. So again, I'm really happy to the Guyanese people. Let me salute them, thanking them for voting us into office, giving us the opportunity to roll the red carpet. The red carpet is not for Broomes nor Hastings. It's for Guyanese.
Ladies, definitely have to begin to wrap up. But there's, most of the female ministers and members of parliament, government ministers and government members of parliament, I like to ask them this question because, again, it always comes back to being about the human resources, how we, our citizens will benefit, especially women and children. So beginning with you, Minister Hastings-Williams, what would you like to say, especially to the women folk in the hinterland community, in terms of what they should take away from Budget 2017, how it will benefit them, their homes, their families, and their communities? Just in a nutshell.
Okay, well, I'll come back to the Hinterland Housing Project because a part of the criteria is that women must be empowered.
Okay.
And that is why we embarked on including women participating fully. And then they would have like a little debate why they would choose the zinc roof in place, because men, even to Minister Ali Cock, you may have heard him saying he doesn't want to move away from the thatch roof because it's cool. But then when we listen to the women says, yes, that is true, but they cannot harvest rainwater using the thatch roof. And when their husband leave them to go into the mines or elsewhere, they have to be there to provide for their children. And it is always difficult for them to go, fetch water from a far creek or from a well or wherever. But if they have their little tanks at home and they can harvest rainwater, it would be easier. And knowing that their children are safe, in an enclosed building, separated rooms, an area to play. And you have seen, I saw one of the models that they have done. See how beautifully these women decorated. They have a home, they began painting it, they began to plant little flowers around and, make it very, changing the face of the environment, and the children are happy and much more happy in these little homes. And I am happy that, the PPP may want to take the credit that they started it. Yes, they started it, but we said that it was a good program, and we've improved on it, and we'll continue to improve on it. We'll continue to improve on how we go about really building these homes for our brothers, Amerindian brothers and sisters in the hinterland. And we have also spoken with the Islamic Bank that was here, because we want to roll out this project into other regions, like in Region 7, Region 8, we don't want to concentrate only on 1 and 9 and spread it out so that they can benefit from this project. And so that's one way of how we empower our women. We see that. Another way, project that the lawyer spoke about earlier, the SLED program, which was previously under the Ministry of Communities. That's whereby we encourage women to get into groups, register, be a registered and a recognized group whereby they can access this grant, and in whatever entrepreneurship program they want to do, whether it's poultry rearing, garment factory, painting, craft, weaving, whatever it was, what's suitable and appropriate for the community, we encourage them to access funds through the SLED program. But I am happy that it falls now under the Ministry of Social Protection, and which has more, which is more acquainted with the women and children. And I'm quite sure they're going to make use of these grants that will be offered under the SLED program to empower themselves. And of course, our human resource is very, very important to our development. And I would wish the Guyanese young women and young men and all Guyanese to make use of these opportunities, try to find out how they can get access. And as ministers of the government, we're always open. My doors are always open. Encourage them to come in if there is anything that they need to inquire, and wherever I can assist them, I do that on a daily basis. It's from my office. There is no special day for public. Whenever I'm available, they can come in to see me. And I tell those receptionists and the security guards, unless I am occupied at a meeting or in a conference or on any field, do not stop anyone from coming to see me and discuss it.
Great, thank you so much, and I know the public will definitely appreciate that, Minister Hastings-Williams. Minister Broomes, we're going to wrap up with sentiments from you. Women, what should they take away, despite the naysayers and the doomsday cry? What should they take away?
But I want to say to the women before, and I want to encourage women, I don't want to be disappointed here again, because when I was heading the Women Miners Organization, I got 6 mineral properties in which I paid for, and that was not properly utilized by the Women Miners Organization. But now the open policy area that we're looking for is to encourage women, and Malika, you can be head of a syndicate or a group, that conform yourself into a group, into a cluster, even if you don't know about mining, and an area is being given to the syndicate, and you have partners that will work the syndicate and pay a percentage to the syndicate, and that money will then bust equally across the board with women empowerment. Men can do it, but I want to encourage women to hold on to this opportunity. It's a real opportunity. What we will do to ensure that persons don't miss the bus is that when you receive the property, a group gets an area, and after a year, I myself will re-examine what was done with the area, and then if nothing else, before you get the property, we might have an arrangement signed on so that maybe you could just give somebody else who might need it. Why are we doing that? Oftentimes, persons get the property, leave there, they can't pay for it, and they just go back to the state. So what we want to do is to push them also, not only to, oh, I got a block in the mining industry. That is not it. But to encourage them to use it and to utilize it. So real natural money and real empowerment. I'm a living example of the wealth from the extractive industry. My kids are all overseas, universities and all of that. So I want to say to women, even if you're a single parent, you can find yourself in the cluster. And who knows, I was pushing a project, and you might not have to rent it, but you could come together and you get your equipment. We're looking to see if there are persons that will want to facilitate women in the group in terms, with credits and all of that. And from that, what you can do, the money that is paid into the group, for some persons to start up, you can use that same money, and then you could put out your own operation where you can benefit more. So like I said, apart from all the negatives, it's about real, honest and genuine empowerment coming out there. And so for the women of Guyana, not even if you're not into mining, there's so much opportunities, business opportunities, social protection, indigenous people, community. Every ministry have something in this budget for women. But what I want to see, stop looking on. It is your change. Live it, feel it, and be a part of it.
Thank you so very much. And after you've said all of that, I can't possibly ask for anything else. Of course, viewers, you would have been viewing a discussion on budget 2017, Guyana's national budget 2017. Of course, this is budget in focus. I would have been chatting with a minister within the Ministry of Communities, Don Hastings, the Honorable Don Hastings-Williams, and of course, minister within the Ministry of Natural Resources, the Honorable Simona Broomes. This has been Budget in Focus. I am Malika Ramsey. Thanks for watching.